right now. The Supreme Court last week struck down Trump's tariffs. In a 6-3 decision, they decided that Trump did not have the authority to, issue tariffs against other countries because they believe it is the authority of Congress to do that. So the clause that Trump was using to issue the tariffs, the Supreme Court said he overused his authority by using that clause to sort of issue tariffs on a wide-ranging spread like as he did. As a result of that, Trump ended up calling a press conference where he apparently kind of gave them, he kind of railed at the Supreme Court for that decision. What we'll do is we'll shift right into that press conference just so I can see what he said, because I'm seeing clips here and there. I don't know what he actually said. And then we'll shift into where we stand today as a result of everything going on, and I'll share my thoughts. I think if I was Donald Trump, given the circumstances, it might not make sense for him to express his frustration with the Supreme Court openly, because that now is going to alienate a branch of government that he's really going to need, because a lot of his decisions will be challenged by Congress and others, especially if he loses the House or the Senate. And so if he's gone to the extent of offending that third branch of government, it's probably unlikely that they'll see anything else his way. So it's a very sensitive place. I understand he's invested a lot of time in his policy. So I think it is frustrating for him. I can understand where it's coming from, but I can't quite say that he's handling it the right way. So let's see if we can get that video pulled up.
Wow.
This was
a lot of people. That's a new record. We set a record every time. Well, thank you very much for being here. The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing, and I'm ashamed of certain members of the court, absolutely ashamed, for not having the courage to do what's right for our country. I'd like to thank and congratulate Justices Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh for their strength and wisdom and love of our country.
It is important to note that Trump appointed 3 of the members of the Supreme Court, all 3 of which voted against him. Well, 2 of the 3, I believe, voted against him. So maybe even 3 of the 3. I'm not exactly sure, but it's somewhere around that. In a 6-3 decision, you have the 3 hardline conservative justices, and then Kavanaugh being one of those. He did appoint Kavanaugh. But the other 2 went against him.
Which is right now very proud of those justices. When you read the dissenting opinions, there's no way that anyone can argue against them. There's no way. Foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years are ecstatic. They're so happy. And they're dancing in the streets, but they won't be dancing for long. That I can assure you. The Democrats on the court are thrilled, but they will automatically vote no. They're an automatic no, just like in Congress. They're an automatic no. They're against anything that makes America strong, healthy, and great again. They also are a, frankly, disgrace to our nation, those justices. They're an automatic no, no matter how good a case you have. It's a no. But you can't knock their loyalty. It's one thing, frankly, disgrace to our nation.
Again, it's important to point out that Trump appointed Neil Gorsuch, Amy Coney Barrett, and I believe Justice Kavanaugh. He was the Chief Justice John Roberts, but I don't believe he was appointed by Trump. Maybe he might have been in the first. Yeah, I think he was. Oh, he might have. I'm not sure. I think he was only. He may have been appointed before, but he sided with these two women. And this is the three justices that are, I guess, liberal, if you will. And somehow, Amy Coney Barrett, who was appointed, I think she was nominated by um, Mitch McConnell, made the suggestion, and Neil Gorsuch was also another guy that Trump was pretty high on. Thought was, a really, really, really good candidate. But a lot of these people were suggested to Trump when during his first stint in politics. He wasn't no. He was leaning on the opinions of his advisors as to who he should nominate when those vacancies came up, and he made the opinion, and obviously nominated these people. But in reality, these people aren't really as conservative as, say, Trump is, because they sided on something that should be cut and dry. They sided with the liberals to join against Trump. So I can understand why he's frustrated and why he would feel as if he's been backstabbed. These are people that I'm sure gave him assurances that they would take a conservative approach towards things, and on probably his biggest, most pivotal agenda item, which is trade, they essentially kind of stabbed them in the back and left them out to dry. So it makes total sense as to why Donald Trump would be unhappy. The problem is that I think, though, he stands a chance of alienating them and offending them to a point where they never see anything else his ways for the rest of the 3 years, which is what the problem may be. And I'm hoping he can regain his composure to not, tweet or post true social posts about them in that manner, because you still need them on your side. But two of his three appointees going against him, I think anyone would feel betrayed by that. So I can totally understand where the animus is coming from on his end.
Those justices, they're an automatic no matter how good a case you have. It's a no. But you can't knock their loyalty. It's one thing you can do with some of our people. Others think they're being politically correct, which has happened before far too often with certain members of this court. And it's happened so often with this court. What a shame. Having to do with voting in particular, when in fact they're just being fools and lapdogs for the rhinos and the radical left Democrats, and not that this should have anything at all to do with it. They're very unpatriotic and disloyal to our Constitution. It's my opinion that the court has been swayed by foreign interests and a political movement that is far smaller than people would ever think. It's a small movement. I won by millions of votes. We won in a landslide. With all the cheating that went on, there was a lot of it. We still won in a landslide. Too big to rig. But these people are obnoxious, ignorant, and loud. They're very loud. And I think certain justices are afraid of that. They don't want to do the right thing. They're afraid of it. This was an important case to me, more as a symbol of economic national security. And also, I would say, just for our country itself, so important, because we're doing so well as a country. We've never done so well. The good news is that there are methods, practices, statutes, and authorities, as recognized by the entire court in this terrible decision, and also as recognized by Congress, which they refer to, that are even stronger than the IEEPA tariffs available to me as President of the United States. And in actuality, I was very modest in my ask of other countries and businesses because I wanted to do, and it's very important, I wanted to be very well behaved because I wanted to do anything, I didn't want to do anything that would affect the decision of the court, because I understand the court. I understand how they're very easily swayed. I want to be a good boy. I have very effectively utilized tariffs over the past year to make America great again. Our stock market has just recently broken 50,000 on the Dow, and simultaneously, and even more amazingly, broken 7,000 on the S&P, two numbers that everybody thought upon our landslide election victory could not be attained. Think of that. Nobody thought it was possible to do it within 4 years, and we did it in 1 year. They said, you'll never be able, you'll go back and you read the geniuses, read their statements, all of the Nobel Prize winners in economics. They said, no, you couldn't do it in 4 years. Well, we didn't do it in 4 years. We did it in 1 year. We broke every record in the book, and we're continuing to do so. Tariffs have likewise been used to end 5 of the 8 wars that I settled. I settled 8 wars, whether you like it or not, including India, Pakistan, big ones, nuclear, could have been nuclear. Prime Minister of Pakistan said yesterday at the great meeting that we had, the Peace Board, he said yesterday that President Trump could have saved 35 million lives by getting us to stop fighting. They were getting ready to do some bad things. But they've given us great national security, these tariffs have. And together with our strong borders, reduced fentanyl coming into our country by 30%. When I use them as a penalty against countries illegally sending this poison into our country, poison our youth. All of those tariffs remain. They all remain. I don't know if you know that or not. They all remain. We're still getting them, and we will after the decision. Guess there's nobody left to appeal to. But again, those 3 people, such respect. I've had a lot of respect for them anyway, but such great respect. Can't charge $1 to any country under IEEPA. Not $1. I assume to protect other countries. This must have been done to protect those other countries, certainly not the United States of America, which they should be interested in protecting. That's what they're supposed to be protecting. But I am allowed to cut off any and all trade or business with that same country. In other words, I can destroy the trade. I can destroy the country. I'm even allowed to impose a foreign country destroying embargo. I can embargo. I can do anything I want, but I can't charge $1 because that's not what it says. And that's not the way it even reads. I can do anything I want to do to them, but I can't charge any money. So I'm allowed to destroy the country, but I can't charge them a little fee. I could give them a little 2-cent fee, but I cannot charge under any circumstances. I cannot charge them anything. Think of that. How ridiculous is that? I'm allowed to embargo them. I'm allowed to tell them you can't do business in the United States anymore. We want you out of here. But if I want to charge them $10, I can't do that. It's incorrect. Their decision's incorrect. But it doesn't matter because we have very powerful alternatives that have been approved by this decision. You know, they've been approved by the decision for those that thought they had us. And they're saying that I have the absolute right to license, but not the right to charge a license fee. So think of that. I have the right to license, which is a very powerful word. In many ways, license is more powerful than tariffs. In fact, I was thinking about using it. But they came up with the idea that I can license, just like the people that were opposing me told them to do, but not the right to charge a license fee. Think of that. Who ever heard of such a thing? What license has ever been issued without the right to charge a fee? You get a license, you charge a fee. It's automatic, but not with this court. But now the court has given me the unquestioned right to ban all sorts of things from coming into our country, to destroy foreign countries. but a much more powerful right than many people ever thought we even had, but not the right to charge a fee. How crazy is that? Our country is the hottest country anywhere in the world right now. And it was a dead country 1.5 years ago under an incompetent president. But now I'm going to go in a different direction, probably the direction that I should have gone the first time, but I read the language. I'm very good at reading language, and it read our way 100%. But now I'll go the way I could have gone originally, which is even stronger than our original choice. As Justice Kavanaugh, whose stock has gone so up, you have to see, I'm so proud of him, wrote in his dissent, although I firmly disagree with the court's holding today, the decision might not substantially constrain a president's ability to order tariffs going forward. So think of that. The decision might not substantially constrain. And it doesn't. He's right. In fact, I can charge much more than I was charging. So I'm going to just start. Although I firmly disagree with the court's holding today, the decision might not substantially constrain a president's ability to order tariffs going forward. That's because numerous other federal statutes, which is so true, authorize the president to impose tariffs and might justify most, if not all, of the tariffs issued in this case. Even more tariffs, actually. Those statutes include, think of that, those statutes include, for example, the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, Section 232. All of these things I know so well. The Trade Act of 1974, Sections 122, 201, 301. And the Tariff Act of 1930, Section 338, all clear. But it's a little bit longer process. I thought I'd make things simple, but they didn't let us do that. I would like to thank Justice Kavanaugh for frankly, his genius and his great ability. Very proud of that appointment. In actuality, while I am sure that they did not mean to do so, the Supreme Court's decision today made a president's ability to both regulate trade and impose tariffs more powerful and more crystal clear rather than less. I don't think they meant that. I'm sure they didn't. It's terrible. And to think that the Democrats who oppose this only because they want to go the opposite way, they'd like to pack the court. They want to put on 21 people. They want to pack the court, pack the Supreme Court. Maybe they should do it. Maybe they would be better off if they did it. They want to pack the court. They want to do anything to hurt our country. There will no longer be any doubt, and the income coming in and the protection of our companies and country will actually increase because of this decision. I don't think the court meant that, but it's the way it is. Based on long-standing law and hundreds of victories, and even, as I was pointed out before, even thousands of victories over the years, to the contrary, the Supreme Court did not overrule tariffs. They merely overruled a particular use of IEEPA tariffs. And essentially, it's used to get a fee. I can do anything I want with IEEPA, anything. I just can't charge anybody for it. I can license, I just can't charge them. It's ridiculous, but it's okay because we have other ways, numerous other ways. The ability to block, embargo, restrict, license, or impose any other condition on a foreign country's ability to conduct trade with the United States under IEEPA has been fully confirmed by this decision. So now there's no doubt, because, there were a lot of questions about tariffs because no president was smart enough to use them to protect our country from those countries and businesses that were ripping us off. You took a look at the deficits that we had with some of these countries. It was disgraceful what they got away with for many, many decades. But now we know, because this decision affirms all those things that some people weren't sure about. In order to protect, and it says so, in order to protect our country, a president can actually charge more tariffs than I was charging in the past period of a year under the various tariff authorities. So we can use other of the statutes, other of the tariff authorities, which have also been confirmed and are fully allowed. Therefore, effective immediately, all national security tariffs under Section 232 and existing Section 301 tariffs, they're existing, they're there, remain in place, fully in place, and in full force and effect. Today, I will sign an order to impose a 10% global tariff under Section 122 over and above our normal tariffs already being charged. And we're also initiating several Section 301 and other investigations to protect our country from unfair trading practices of other countries and companies. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And I say quite simply, which I've said for a long time, make America great again. And interestingly, we've already made it great, so I don't have to use that, but I don't think we'll ever give up on MAGA. MAGA is always going to be with us. If you have a few questions, you can let us know. But just to end, so we're going forward, we will be able to take in more money, and there'll no longer be doubt, because there was always doubt. I know the people that brought the lawsuit, and they're sleazebags, major sleazebags, but I know them, and they're foreign country centric. They were sending things into our country, and the people representing them knew full well, but they were sending things into our country, and they were beneficial to other countries, but very, very bad for us. And I stopped it, and we'll just keep it going. So we have a totally firm decision now. And I don't think the court meant it, because the court doesn't show great spirit toward our country, in my opinion. A lot of bad decisions, but there are usually ways around it. This is something we could have done, as Justice Kavanaugh said, we could have done this originally, but we're doing it now. And the numbers could be far greater than the hundreds of billions we've already taken in. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, I'm very curious. You've spoken about
in the red.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Justice Thomas and Alito, as you know, are the most conservative constitutional justices. Do you think that you'll get to appoint 2 more justices later this term with similar ideologies? And what type of vetting process will they go through to ensure they uphold?
I don't know, but they're great justices. That's all I could say. And I hope they're going to be around a long time. I hope they're going to stay healthy. They're great people. They're great. And Justice Alito, too, to add to the group. These are great men.
Right.
With a great love of our country and a great understanding of the law.
Mr. President, are you going to ask Congress to take additional action on tariffs now?
No, I don't need to. It's already been approved. I mean, I would ask Congress and probably get it. When people look at the real numbers, and you look at hundreds of billions of dollars that have come into our country. Yesterday, I was at a steel plant, as you know, and I went to great place, great plant, great, wonderful people. And they were telling me, I said to them, you were there, a lot of the press in this room. Of course, I don't think this plane's big enough to take the press in this room, but a lot of the press right here. We're in Georgia. And I said to the owner, I made a speech at a factory. They make steel products. And I said, how are you? Nice to meet you. How's business? President, I'd love to kiss you. This is a very powerful man. I don't want to be kissed by that man, but a very powerful, strong man. He's been in the steel business for many years. His father started it. And he said, sir, I want to kiss you. I said, why? He said, because we were down to working 1 hour a week, and then you came in and imposed tariffs, and all of that foreign junk that they were dropping into our country stopped. And we're now going to double shifts, 7 days a week, and we may be very soon going to 24 hours around the clock, almost 7 days a week. He said, sir, I want to kiss you so badly. And I said, no, thank you. But you know what? He just to finalize it, he said, oh, this is a great place in Georgia. He said, all up and down the highway, same exact answer, sir. We're all going out of business. We're going to go bankrupt. We're all going out of business. And now every one of us are thriving, and we're hiring people like we haven't, he said, like I've never And he's been in business for, I think, 45 years like we've never hired before. That's because of tariffs. And we're going to keep it going the same way. And you're going to start to see the results in a year from now when all those factories start that are under construction right now. You see all the construction numbers are so good. Those construction workers are building factories that are going to be open, including not only AI, which is big, but car plants coming in from Canada, who ripped us off for 30% of our market. Mexico ripped us off for a big portion. Over the years, they've taken our market. They've taken our cars. They manufacture them in Japan, Germany, and all over the place because nobody's standing in this position. The position I have as president of the United States had the insight, the courage, I don't know what it is, to charge tariffs. You can make your product outside. You can put our people out of business. You can put everybody on the unemployment rolls. But if you're going to make a car in some other country, you're going to pay a 15, 20, 30% tariff. And those things would have never happened. We wouldn't have lost our business. Same thing with, as an example, Taiwan. Taiwan came in. They stole our chip business. They make chips. For 30 years longer, they made chip. And they put our companies. Intel would be now the largest company. I saved Intel. I literally saved it at the beginning of this administration. And now all those companies in Taiwan are building factories in Arizona, Texas, and various other places because they don't want to pay tariffs. They're all pouring into the United States. But just like that great patriot said yesterday, sir, what you've done, nobody thought was possible. And Steve Moore, a highly respected economist, came into my office yesterday. He said, you've done something nobody's ever done. 22 Nobel Prize winners in economics said we would right now be in a recession. And you said, no, we're going to have a booming country. We're going to have a booming country. You were right. All 22 were wrong, and you were right. This country is booming, and it's booming because of the election on November 5th, and it's booming for another reason. It's booming because of tariffs. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. What was said ahead of this decision that if the Supreme
Yeah,
Court
please,
ruled?
go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. What will you say to foreign nations who seek to renegotiate their deals? And what did you mean a moment ago when you said that the Supreme Court has been swayed by foreign interests?
Well, I think that foreign interests are represented by people that I believe have undue influence. They have a lot of influence over the Supreme Court, whether it's through fear or respect or friendships. I don't know. But I know some of the people that were involved on the other side, and I don't like them. I think they're real slime balls. And got to do what's right for the country. You got to do what's right for the Constitution. That's why I respect so much Justice Thomas and Alito, Kavanaugh, because they not only dissented, their dissent is so strong. When you read their dissent, you know, a lot of times you'll read a dissent and it's like, well, you don't know, it could go either way. There's no other way. The good news is, it's like Justice Kavanaugh said, very strongly said, you have other ways you can go. You don't have to go that way. You can go other way. There are numerous other ways you can go. And frankly, this should have been done by presidents many years ago. They allowed our country to be eaten alive. We lost 50% of our car business. We used to make cars. We made all the cars. And then Mexico came, Canada came, Japan and Germany. But they're all coming back now. They're all coming back at record levels. No, you.
If you're joining us, President Trump is answering questions related to the Supreme Court striking down his tariff.
It's fake news. Go ahead.
Mr. President, yesterday you made the case that the economy is the hottest it's been in a long time. Right. January jobs report beat expectations, CPI report beat expectations, real wages are up. What would you tell Americans who are worried that this decision will kind of throw the economy that you have projected going in the right direction at a very rapid pace off track?
Well, thank you for the question. And I will say this, we really are at a very important point. I've been waiting for this decision so long. They could have made this decision a long time ago. Not complex. They're wrong on it. It's a ridiculous decision. But they should have released this a long time ago. We waited months. And that gave uncertainty. Now we have certainty. And I think you're going to see the country get much stronger because of it. Look, we were ripped off by almost every country in the world. If you look at the surpluses, almost every country in the world that did business with us, our people were stupid. And I blame presidents for it because they're ultimately the leader. We were being ripped off by almost every single country in the world had some massive surpluses. China had hundreds of billions of dollars in surpluses with the United States. They rebuilt China. They rebuilt the army. We built China's army by allowing that to happen. I have a great relationship with President Xi, but he respects our country now. Now, what we've done, I charged China a 20% tariff as a penalty for sending fentanyl in. And that was 20 times more than they could make by selling fentanyl. And I said, at some point you're going to say, and they have reduced it. Fentanyl is down by more than 30% coming into our country. Part of that is our strong border. We have a strong border now. But thank you. Thank you for your question.
Mr. President, sir, you warned once in a social media post that if the Supreme Court did this, shot down your tariffs, the U.S. would be, quote, financially defenseless. Are we financially defenseless right now?
No, because we're doing something in a different way. We're doing something in a very powerful way. And we're using things that some people thought we should have used in the first place. But it's more complicated. It's a little more complicated. The process takes a little more time. But the end result is going to get us more money. And I think it's going to be great. Yeah, Peter, go ahead.
Thank you, President Trump. So since Liberation Day, there's about $175 billion in tariff revenue that is now in limbo. Do you have to refund $175 billion?
Think of it, Peter. Very fair question. They take months and months to write an opinion, and they don't even discuss that point. We've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars, not millions, hundreds of billions of dollars. And so I said, well, what happens to all the money that we took in? It wasn't discussed. Wouldn't you think they would have put one sentence in there saying that keep the money or don't keep the money, right? I guess it has to get litigated for the next 2 years. So they write this terrible, defective decision, totally defective. It's almost like not written by smart people. And what they do, they don't even talk about that. Your question is very basic. That was the first question I asked also to make you feel good. They said, what about all the money that we've taken in? Sir, they don't discuss that. How crazy is that?
What you're saying is, are you saying that you don't plan to honor refunds for companies that file for them?
I just told you the answer, right? I told you the answer. It's not discussed. We'll end up being in court for the next 5 years. Go ahead, Green.
Thank you, Mr. President. When you are talking about the relationship with countries that you have sought trade deals with, do you anticipate that they will seek to renegotiate those? What do you say to them? And do you view this as a potential undermining power for your
we're
negotiations?
going straight ahead with 10% straight across the board, which was the absolute right to do. And that's taking place. That's a lot of money coming into our country. And then during that period of about 5 months, we are doing the various investigations necessary to put fair tariffs or tariffs, period, on other countries. So we're doing that period, but we're immediately instituting the 10% provision, which we're allowed to do. And in the end, I think we'll take in more money than we've taken in before.
President, you've used the tariff revenue to pay for a host of federal policies. You claim that they will pay for them. What happens?
Well, like the farmers, we took care of farmers. You know, the farmers were mistreated by foreign countries very badly, very, very badly. And last week I gave them $12 billion out of tariff money. We intend to, out of tariff money, because just so you understand, we have tariffs. We just have them in a different way. And now they've been confirmed by the Supreme Court of the United States. So there's no longer that question out there about tariffs. And we'll be taking in hundreds of billions of dollars. And countries that have treated us badly will have to pay a price for treating us badly. And countries that have been good to us will be treated very well. We just left the top person in a place called Vietnam, just left my office. Great gentleman, strong and smart. He said, you know, I think this means you're allowed to charge us more tariffs than before. And Canada said to Jameson, I might want to say it, Jameson, but Canada said, I hope you win this decision, because if you don't win, you'll actually be allowed to charge us with a little additional work, higher tariffs. Jameson, you want to comment on that?
Yes, sir. So the president's point, we have a lot of tools out there. We have Section 122, which will be implemented today. It will be signed today and implemented very shortly. We have Section 301 investigations, which are incredibly legally durable, where we can investigate and address unfair trading practices that have led to our huge trade deficit. And so you can look forward in the coming days and weeks to seeing all of that come out, and we're going to keep continuity in the program. We're going to keep addressing this so that the deficit can keep going down. That's the trend it has, and we can make America great again.
No.
Several of Republicans in Congress have supported this decision by the Supreme Court, and Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader, has called you a wannabe king. Why wouldn't
him a low IQ?
But why wouldn't
he doesn't even know? And I watched him the other day interview. The guy doesn't even know what a tariff is.
There's been bipartisan criticism.
No, not
of
bipartisan.
the tariffs.
Excuse me.
There's several
A few
Republicans
people.
have said that.
Yeah,
Well,
a
why
few people.
wouldn't you just work with Congress to come up with a plan?
I don't have to.
To push tariffs.
I have the
through?
right to do tariffs, and I've always had the right to do tariffs, and it's all been approved by Congress. So there's no reason to do it. All we're doing is we're going through a little bit more complicated process. Not complicated very much, but a little more complicated than what we had. We'll be able to take in tariffs, more tariffs. And the Congress people and the Congress,
down the Canadian tariffs last week.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
been votes
you
in
know
the
why?
Senate against it.
yeah, because we lost 2 Republicans or 3 Republicans because they're not good Republicans. What you don't say, you don't say that we got 215 votes.
You need 218 for something to pass.
Yeah, sure we do. We might have lost 3 votes, and what was the score on the Republican side? 215 to 3, right? But you don't say that. We have great unity. There's great unity in the Republican Party, and I hope everyone's going to vote Republican, because otherwise you won't have a country left, because these people have been they are destroying our country. Please.
Mr. President, the 122 tariffs, that 10%,
Yeah.
is that going to be for 150 days, or do you want to charge that indefinitely?
We have a right to do pretty much what we want to do, but we're going to charge it starting effectively. I think it's 3 days from now. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, you speak to a lot of factory workers, a lot of manufacturing workers. What does the Supreme Court ruling say? What's that message to those factory workers?
Well, I think the factory workers are happy because we're now telling them that they're going to look. The man I met with yesterday, who owned a factory, was out of business. He was out of business, and now he's employing 5 times. In fact, I walked in. He's got a brand new crane. I said, "How old is that crane?" We got it in December. He's allowed to write it off in 1 minute. The Great Big Beautiful Act gave no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. He said this great big beautiful bill, frankly, has been the best thing that's ever happened for the workers much more so than for rich people.
So it goes without saying that President Trump is very frustrated that that this was done to him. Now, where do we stand today? Well, obviously, we're in a new week, and there's a few countries that's currently in negotiation with President Trump. India being one of them. They just came to an agreement, but obviously, this is going to change things a little bit in the agreement that they've arranged. So let's go ahead and see what the weights and the effects is.
When the Supreme Court talks, you listen. That's how most democracies work. It doesn't matter if you're the most popular president in history. It doesn't matter if you have a brute majority in parliament. When the top court says something, you listen. Well, not Donald Trump. Last Friday, the US Supreme Court struck down his global tariffs. They found that Trump had exceeded his authority as president. And frankly, it was a godsend for the US president. His tariffs were already unpopular among the people. They were raising prices. They were dampening growth. So a wise politician would have cashed in. Basically, they would have used this verdict to roll back the tariffs. Again, not Donald Trump. He attacked the court for its decision, and he imposed a new tariff using a different law.
The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing, and I'm ashamed of certain members of the court, absolutely ashamed, for not having the courage to do what's right for our country. Foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years are ecstatic. They're so happy. And they're dancing in the streets, but they won't be dancing for long. That I can assure you. I know the people that brought the lawsuit, and they're sleazebags, major sleazebags, but I know them, and they're foreign country centric. Today, I will sign an order to impose a 10% global tariff under Section 122 over and above our normal tariffs already being charged. And we're also initiating several Section 301 and other investigations to protect our country from unfair trading practices of other countries and companies.
It started off at 10%, but within hours, Trump raised it to 15%. This time, he's using another law from the 1970s, the 1974 Trade Act. This act allows the US president to impose sweeping tariffs, but there are conditions. For starters, the rate cannot be over 15%, plus they only last for 150 days. The tariffs last for 150 days. After that, Trump will have to get approval from the US Congress. If not, the tariffs will automatically repeal. Though Trump says he does not need that. Look at his latest social media post. I'm quoting. I do not have to go back to Congress to get approval of tariffs. It has already been gotten in many forms a long time ago. They were also just reaffirmed by the ridiculous and poorly crafted Supreme Court decision. Now, it's not clear what Donald Trump is trying to say, but as things stand, this is a temporary measure. The US Congress will not support a 15% global tariff, meaning the White House will need another solution, and they will need it fast. In fact, Trump was absolutely livid on Friday. Even by his standards, he blew a fuse. The president called the US judges fools and lapdogs. He called them an embarrassment to their families. And today, these attacks continued. Trump unleashed a new level of pettiness today. He says he won't use uppercase for the Supreme Court anymore. Listen to this, I'm quoting. The Supreme Court, I will be using lowercase letters for a while based on a complete lack of respect. Accidentally and unwittingly gave me as President of the United States far more powers and strength than I had prior to their ridiculous, dumb, and very internationally divisive ruling. Like I said, a new level of pettiness. But what exactly is Trump talking about here? How does this verdict accidentally empower him? And if it does, why is Trump so angry about it? Why isn't he celebrating the verdict? Because what he's saying is not true. The verdict is a major setback to the White House, and as always, Trump is just trying to spin it. The question is, who does this actually benefit? Who does the verdict benefit? Some countries did negotiate rates lower than 15%. Countries like the UK and Australia, they secured 10% tariffs from the White House. For them, this verdict is a setback. But for most of Asia, this is a better equation. India, for instance, had negotiated 18% tariffs. China was facing 32% tariffs, and most of Southeast Asia is at around 20%. So for these countries, there is a reduction in tariffs. Having said that, here's a bigger question. What happens to the trade deals? Well, that depends on which country you're talking about. Western countries are not too happy about this change. The European Union is set to stop the ratification of its trade deal. They want some clarity first. You see, the EU had secured a 15% tariff rate from the White House. They'd also obtained zero tariffs on some crucial sectors. Now, that advantage of zero tariffs is gone, which is why Brussels is putting the ratification on hold. They say a deal is a deal. You cannot raise tariffs after sealing a deal. Meanwhile, in Asia, the thinking must be quite the opposite. Their trade deals with Donald Trump are already unpopular at home, and they will see this as a chance to renegotiate, to basically seek better terms. China, for example, would be thrilled. They are calling for a review of the trade equation.
I retired my wife, Brooke, so she could be a full-time mom using private trading networks. You want to know how?
I made a $200,000.
China urges the United States to cancel its unilateral tariff measures on its trading partners. There are no winners in a trade war, and that protectionism leads nowhere.
It's easy for American rivals like China, but for American partners, it's a bit more complicated. Technically, You can now play hardball with Trump. The US Supreme Court has given you the perfect leverage. But if you do so, you will antagonize the US president. He can still use other laws to hurt your exports. He can also hit you elsewhere, like on defense or semiconductors, which is why American allies will be wary. Yes, they will take time to reevaluate their options, but walking away from the deals, well, that will be tough. Just consider the example of Japan. Japan has agreed to invest $550 billion in the US economy, and that pledge is a crucial part of the US-Japan trade deal. The first package, worth around $36 billion, was announced last week, and despite the Supreme Court verdict, Tokyo says it will go ahead. It will still invest the first package of $36 billion into the US economy, and that's the expectation from Washington as well. Trump's trade envoy says they will not cancel existing agreements. Those pledges and tariffs will continue. The problem is that's a direct clash with the Supreme Court verdict, the American Supreme Court's verdict. The US will stop collecting the reciprocal tariffs from tomorrow, and on the same day, it will start imposing the new tariffs. These two tariff regimes are very different from each other. For instance, Trump's old regime promises 10% tariffs to Australia, but the new regime imposes 15% tariffs. So why would the Australian government simply accept this change? That's the first looming flashpoint. The second is the issue of refunds. American importers paid the tariffs imposed by Donald Trump. They paid it, and then they transferred the burden to American customers. We're talking around $134 billion. That's the extra payment. Technically, this money must be refunded to those importers. The US Supreme Court did not weigh in on that. This issue will be decided by lower courts. But even if they order a refund, American citizens won't get a penny.
That means when Trump imposed the tariffs, the importers, the people who paid to have the product shipped into the country, are the retail stores, those companies. They've already marked up their prices to reflect the increased costs to them, which they then passed off to the consumer. The consumer has already factored in the cost and paid off the cost. But the companies who made their margins are now going back to the Trump administration and saying, well, you owe us a refund because you illegally charged this tariff. You weren't authorized to do it. You did. It hurt our business. And in so doing, we now are entitled to a refund. But they won't pass on that refund to the consumers they charge a higher price to. They're just going to pocket the refund. So the retail stores get to win because they got paid their margins when they charged the customer the higher price at first. And they're also going to get the refund, which they're not going to pay back to that customer. So they're going to pocket the refund. So they're double charging the customer, essentially. The upcharge on the cost, they passed on to the customer paid it. Then they're going back to the federal government and saying, you shouldn't have charged us the refund. You forced us to charge an upcharge, and that caused us harm. And now we need that upcharge money back. But they've already gotten it when they charged the customer more money. So this is another one of those very, very sticky situations where it's really the retailers who benefit. And Trump, knowing this, is going to certainly make them pay for it if they do choose to claim for the refund. I'm certain of it.
And they're the ones who bore the brunt of the higher tariffs. Yet not a single dollar will go to the American customers. Only the importers will get that money. It's one of the reasons why businesses are happy. But what about the markets? How are investors reacting to this news? Well, there's no extraordinary movement. The S&P 500 is around 0.4% down. The German DAX is also down by 0.5%. And the British FTSE is just 0.2% up. And what explains this lukewarm response? Well, it's the uncertainty. The American Supreme Court's verdict does not mark the end of Trump's tariff war. In fact, he's doubling down on it. This raises the prospect of more temporary measures, more on and off tariffs, and maybe a looming institutional showdown in Washington. And that is why the markets are wary. The tariff verdict may have weakened Trump's hand, but it has not weakened his resolve.
So there you have it. This Supreme Court decision does have a wide-ranging implications, both on the U.S. economy, political implications, as well on Trump's agenda. So we still have yet to see how this will play all the way out. Will Trump continue to find other ways to implement those tariffs? Are those deals that he's already signed still going to stay in effect? Will retailers try to claim those monies back? And if they do, will Trump then penalize them by charging embargoes with various things with the countries that they trade with? There's a number of things that can go, but this can go left. To me, where Trump is most vulnerable is with him lashing out, because this is not going to be the first time or the last time that he gets challenged in court for one of his agenda items while he's in office. And if he's lashing out at some of those justices who he'll eventually need to side with him on future decisions, it may totally sabotage his presidency. Because in 3 branches of government, where the presidency holds one, Congress holds the second, SCOTUS is the tiebreaker. So even though Trump has posted 3 conservative justices on that 9-judge panel, there's 2 or 3 of them that's up in the air that are not big fans of Trump, and clearly will use opportunities to spite him whenever they can. This was one of those things, and if Trump continues down this path, it may get worse. So I pray that somehow, some way, he's able to calm down, take a deep breath, and find a new solution without alienating that branch of government, which he'll critically need in the future. Well, that's my take on this particular story. I ask that you guys weigh in and tell me what you think. Is Trump's presidency over in light of this decision? Does things get more complicated for him? Do you agree with the decision, disagree with the decision? Love to hear your feedback. So weigh in. Like and subscribe to the show if you're not already a member, but also let me know what your thoughts are. And, leave a comment. Until we speak again, I'm Mr. B. Thank you again for joining me. Bye-bye.